When the hull breaches tore through the pressure seal on sub-level 4, shift lead Elena Alvarez didn't drop her mug of lukewarm chicory coffee. She merely set it on the iron-reinforced steel workbench, tapped the digital chronometer on her wrist, and swore under her breath. "That's 40 minutes off our yield target," she muttered into her headset. "Mac, tell me that wasn't the main hopper feed." "Negative, boss," crackled the gravelly voice of Mac, the station's veteran rig technician. "Docking clamp 3 just got sheared with thermite charges. We got an unauthorized breach in processing Bay B transponders, say it's the Obsidian Claw Syndicate. Heavy mercenary scum." Across the hollowed-out interior of asteroid refinery Kalis 9, a 3-billion-ton chunk of iron-nickel stone tumbling through the dark behind the Kuiper Belt. The emergency sirens began their rhythmic, low-frequency pulse. To anyone else, Kalis 9 was a floating graveyard of dust, grit, and crushing gravitational anomalies. To its 19 civilian human drillers and dockers, it was a 12-hour shift away from their quarterly bonus, down in the cavernous expanse of processing. Bay B, the air misted as internal atmospheric locks sealed. Out of the boarding umbilical marched 12 towering warriors clad in polished, iridescent gunmetal war suits. Leading them was Warlord Krax, a reptilian mercenary whose scales were scarred by a dozen planetary campaigns. He gripped an automatic plasma carbine, his 3-jointed legs clicking against the metal decking with deliberate arrogance. His squad fanned out in textbook military assault formation, sweeping the catwalks with targeting lasers. They found no barricades, no private security guards, no desperate civilians huddled behind storage drums, just the endless, echoing clatter of vibrating rock crushers and the distant roar of high-pressure cooling lines. Krax reached up, tapped his wrist gauntlet, and forced an override through the station's unencrypted public address network. His synthesized, grating voice boomed from the overhead speakers, echoing off miles of solid bedrock and titanium reinforcement pillars. "Miners of Kalis 9, I am Warlord Krax of the Obsidian Syndicate. Your facility is under hostile seizure. Power down your life support nodes and stack your refined core canisters in loading gantry 1. Do not attempt resistance." Krax chuckled, a wet, rattling hiss that vibrated across the PA. "For your own education, my Vanguard is outfitted in Class 4 Imperial Aegis deflector plating. Your pathetic kinetic handguns will shatter against our energy dispersal fields. Your pulsed civilian stunners will not even register on our telemetry. We are the apex of modern warfare. You are ore haulers. Throw down your tools and accept your enslavement, or be vaporized where you stand." Silence hung over the refinery floor for 3 long seconds. Then, through the facility's internal radio relay, Elena Alvarez tapped her comm bead. Her voice was not broadcast to Krax, but routed through the tight beam subchannel, humming in the ear of every grease-covered human on the rig. "Did that overgrown gecko just tell us to throw down our tools?" Elena asked flatly. "Sounded like it, boss," replied Chen from the sorting floor. "Sounded like he thinks our gear came from a sporting goods catalog. He thinks a gun is dangerous. Fakaza's a 500-joule pulse," Elena said, stepping into the hydraulic chassis of an 80-ton tracked macro excavator and racking the dual ignition toggles with a heavy iron clunk. "He doesn't understand that a military weapon is designed to hurt a soft tissue organism. Our tools are designed to tear open the molten crust of a dead planet." Elena engaged the broad-spectrum localized radio, patching straight into Krax's stolen PA channel. "Hey, Krax! Elena's voice rang out, crisp, bored and cold as the void outside. You're standing on an active, crushing floor. And you're 5 minutes into our lunch break. Crax snarled, gesturing for his squad to advance toward the refinery's control spine. Find them. Exterminate the shift leader first. The mercenaries moved forward, their Class 4 deflector shields humming with a pale, translucent blue aura. The shields were designed to absorb up to 10 direct hits from military-grade rail rifles or dissipate high-intensity laser blasts across an ablative nanotech lattice. To the galactic military establishment, they were walking tanks. They made it 20 meters before the catwalk beneath them shrieked. High above in the shadows of the vaulted rock ceiling, Mac sat in the cab of an overhead gantry crane. He didn't fire a bullet. He pulled 2 massive pneumatic levers, engaging the asterisk high-tension magnetic salvage harpoons. 500-pound steel spikes wrapped in superconducting copper wire, used for snagging runaway 10,000-ton asteroid fragments in free fall with a deafening twait-wham crack. 2 harpoons struck the metal deck plates 5 inches from Crax's flanks. Before the mercenaries could raise their weapons, Mac flipped the reverse polarity winch. A pulse of 30,000 Gauss magnetic flux surged through the decking. The mercenaries' dense, ferrous alloy deflector suits didn't deflect the magnetism. They were instantly slave to it, with horrific metallic clangs. 4 of the elite shock troopers were violently ripped off their feet and slammed face down into the iron floor, pinned flat under 50 tons of sheer magnetic downward draw. Their deflector shields flickered furiously, trying to calculate a kinetic impact that wasn't an attack, but a sudden, inescapable shift in local gravitational reality. What is this? One mercenary screamed, struggling against the floor plates as his armor groaned under the crushing magnetic clamp. My servos are overloading. That's standard rigging hardware, sweetie. Chen shouted from the upper gantry. From the shadows of the secondary crushing chute, a roar like a dying star tore through the cavern. A heavy 6-legged mining drone, retrofitted with the asterisk continuous beam magnetic plasma borusk, rounded the corner. The bore was 40 feet long, tipped with an oscillating tungsten drill head that spun inside a vortex of superheated magnetic confinement gas. It didn't fire rapid, harmless pulses. It produced a solid, uninterrupted lance of white-hot matter measured at 12,000 Kelvin. A tool designed to chew through 3 miles of solid granite and raw platinum ore veins without stalling. Crax raised his plasma rifle and unleashed a desperate barrage of military pulses. The bolts sparked harmlessly off the drone's 4-inch thick rolled homogeneous lead steel blast shield. Elena sat behind the armored cockpit of the excavator, her hands working the hydraulic joysticks with fluid, practiced muscle memory. Class 4 deflector plates. Huh? Elena's voice crackled through the rig's loudspeakers. Let's see how they handle continuous thermal load. She shoved the accelerator forward. The plasma bore roared, bathing the remaining standing mercenaries in a blinding river of continuous solar-grade heat. The Class 4 military shields lasted exactly 1.4 seconds. The deflector arrays were designed to dissipate split-second bursts, venting excess kinetic heat before the next round arrived. They were never engineered to withstand the sustained, unblinking furnace of an industrial stellar drill. The blue energy bubble turned blinding violet, flashed yellow, and blew its internal heat sinks with a shower of molten copper sparks. The mercenary vanguard scattered in absolute panic. diving behind reinforced support pillars as the continuous plasma beam cleanly sliced an 8-foot-thick, solid nickel stanchion behind them in half like warm butter, leaving the edges glowing cherry red and dripping molten droplets onto the stone. "Fall back to the boarding airlock!" Cracks shrieked over his squad comms, his vaunted pride completely shattered. "They aren't fighting. They are using excavation demolition gear." The retreating pirates scrambled toward the main airlock corridor, dragging their half-pinned comrades, whose suits had finally shorted out from the magnetic coils. They reached the airlock blast doors, frantically punching at the release panel. The doors didn't open. Instead, a red warning beacon began spinning lazily above them. "Warn." Automated slag flush in progress. Cracks looked up just in time to see 3 massive 20-inch pressurized drainage valves rotate open directly above the corridor. Standing on the catwalk above the valves was young Matteo, the 19-year-old sorting tech, wearing a heavy leather apron, thick heat gloves, and a wide grin. He pulled the manual pressure release chain, 50 barrels of pressurized, semi-liquid mineral slag. The white-hot, abrasive volcanic byproduct of refined asteroid core, smelting, poured out of the drainage chutes under 600 psi of compressed steam pressure. It didn't kill them. The miners had calibrated the chute for an unrefined rock wash, but the searing, thick slurry engulfed the mercenaries like an avalanche of fiery mud. The superheated grit clogged their weapon barrels, fused their exterior sensor clusters, and melted their advanced electronic optics into useless lumps of black glass. When the slag wash subsided, the feared obsidian claw vanguard were standing waist-deep in cooling, hardening iron sludge, their elite armor crusted, smoking, and welded solid to the floor. Cracks stood immobilized, his arms pinned to his sides by hardened slag, his weapon melted into a useless brick in his blistered claws. The heavy hydraulic thud of Elena's excavator came to a halt 2 paces in front of him. The massive steel cabin door swung open with a hiss of decompressed air, and Elena dropped lightly to the iron grating. She wasn't wearing powered armor. She wore blue canvas coveralls, heavy steel-toed boots, and a yellow hard hat plastered with safety inspection stickers. In her right hand, she casually carried a 5-foot pneumatic pipe wrench. She walked up to the immobilized alien warlord, tapped the melted snout of his plasma rifle with the heavy cast-iron wrench, and blew a stray strand of dark hair out of her eyes. "You scuffed the finish on Baby's decking, Cracks," she said calmly. Cracks could only stare through his cracked, soot-covered visor, trembling inside his useless, million-credit warsuit. You are not soldiers. This is madness." "No," Elena replied, pulling a roll of industrial-grade, heavy-duty carbon fiber zip ties from her utility belt. "We're Union dockers, and your crew is officially classified as hazardous waste." 3 hours later, the gleaming, razor-sharp frigate of the System Defense Coalition dropped out of warp space, responding with full combat readiness to the automated distress beacon Kalis 9 had sent. A strike team of 20 elite coalition peacekeepers boarded the refinery in full tactical breaching gear, weapons raised, scanning for signs of a massacre. They stepped through the pressure lock into loading gantry 1 and stopped dead in their tracks. Sitting in a neat, orderly row against the far bulkhead were 12 terrifying obsidian claw mercenaries. Their weapons were stacked neatly in a recycling bin marked *Ferros scrap. Their scorched, slag-caked armor had been stripped of its power packs, and every single pirate was bound wrist to ankle with heavy yellow industrial tie-downs. Warlord Cracks sat in the corner, staring blankly at the floor, muttering incoherently about continuous wave thermal drills and magnetic winches. At the far end of the bay, 20 human miners were gathered around a folding plastic table, eating synthetic ham sandwiches and arguing loudly over a fantasy football draft. The coalition boarding commander lowered his pulse rifle, his jaw dropping beneath his helmet. He walked over to Elena, who was leaning against a forklift, reviewing a digital clipboard. "Foreman Alvarez?" the commander asked, looking back and forth between the humiliated warlord and the relaxed dockers. Did you neutralize an entire class? A mercenary strike team by yourselves?" "We didn't neutralize anything," Commander Elena said without looking up from her manifest, signing off on the latest core extraction metrics. "We just cleared an obstruction from the sorting line. They're all yours." The commander stared at the bound mercenaries, then at the massive 50-ton plasma cutter cooling silently in the corner, its tip still faintly radiating heat. "And your refinery's operational status?" he stammered. Elena clicked off her datapad, picked up her chicory coffee, and smiled. "Shift ends in 20 minutes, she said, "and we just broke our monthly extraction record. Pack up your prisoners, Commander. You're standing in the way of our haulers."